Is that beautiful? And then you're going to have the same thing. Is that beautiful? And then you're going to have the same thing.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Can you guys hear me okay? I'm working off a new headset with a new mic. So if you can hear me, the smooth sounds, let me know. How you going to that held on rain? What's up, Russians? How you doing? How you doing? Good. We're good. Excellent. I have a fan on in the background. Hopefully that's not too loud for you guys. And one more second here, and I'll go ahead and turn on my screen. Show you where we're at. Hey yo! Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Let's turn those back up. There we go, that's a little bit better. How's everybody? Yep, this is the current project that I'm working on. A little Queen of the Damned feel. Random character that I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. Um, her toes are sticking out. I think your shoes are a little small, lady. Let's just do that. There we go. So yeah, most of this work has been done on stream. So if you'd like to go back and watch any of the previous stuff, I did a lot of work on the headdress, obviously. Uh, Feel free to go to ZBrushLive.com and find my artist page there, and you can find all the previous goodness streams. There's lots of other great streamers on there too, so if you get a chance to go check those peoples out. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over how I construct an eye and the eye socket for video games. It's the majority, and then we'll do filler stuff after that. I'm trying to get a decent shoulder design here, and then I'm also playing around with kind of repeating this type of design. Excuse me. With a little bit of something like this. So this is just a quick idea that I had. Maybe I would have some kind of architecture in the background that, and then have some kind of cloth droopies that kind of had some kind of design that's centered around her that also mimics some of her design aspects. So I may go through really quickly how to kind of get this into ZBrush and get it around and clean it up and stuff as well. So that's another possibility after the eyeball stuff. The eyeballs. So let's talk about the eyes. The eyes. So again, for this particular model, this was a body scan that I picked up from uh, 3D Scan Store. They have quite a lot of sales throughout the year. So I would go and pick up base bodies and base meshes and everything, anything to get you quickly to where you want to be for developing characters. I wouldn't necessarily start from scratch every time, um, unless you want to do that practice. If you're not doing anatomy practice and you're doing more of character design practice, then base meshes will get you really far really quickly as a start. So that's typically what I do. I've done enough base meshes in my life that I really don't want to do new ones every single project. So this is from a scan from 3D Scan Store. I would highly suggest going to check them out. This is to give you an idea of the topology. Uh, I, I'm using this particular model because they already did the topology, and I like this topology. It's fairly close to what I use in a professional setting. So edge loops looks pretty good. There's enough geo, and the eyes look pretty good. For me, I typically look at how the eyes are constructed when I'm looking at a base mesh. Um, there's all kinds of different ways to create a base mesh, and specifically around the eyeball. How do you construct the eye lids, the crunkle, the eyelashes, the eye shine. What's up, Jeff? How you doing, man? So all kinds of different ways to do it. For me particularly, I like to have a really good edge flow around the eyeball, so I can control the contact point and use a particular edge loop to go around the eye where it touches the eyeball. That way I can control. So even right here, like you can see, it's a little whack. Let's see if this side's any better. This side's a little bit better. See how I have a good consistent edge loop that goes around to help create um, the thickness there, and then this one could probably be a little bit better. So let's clean those up first, and then we'll start talking about how I construct an actual eyeball. Um, when I get to this point, I typically work out of symmetry, especially for eyes, because that's such a center focus that um, it's really unnerving to have some absolutely perfectly symmetrical eyeballs. Um, Hold on one second. Um, so when you get to this point, I typically will break symmetry just so you have kind of some natural, subtle asymmetry. um, Getkin, again, this is sourced base mesh model from 3D Scan Store. Again, I'm using this one because it's very similar to what I would use in a professional setting. So I'm just going to adjust some of the eyelids just to kind of clean up the edge loop a little bit. So if we look, so let's go up to 3 real quick and turn the texture on. Actually, let's leave the texture off. Turn off wireframe. This is pretty good. So it's youthful female face. Typically don't have a lot of deepness in here yet between the lower eyelid and the area within the socket before you get to the zygomatic area. So there's not a whole lot of plane differences in there, and you don't really see a a big plane difference here either. That's typically when you get a little bit older. So what I do is I'll go down to the low setting here, and then I just take a look at the edge loops. So there's a couple of different ways to do the crunkle as well. Some people will make a separate piece of geo for this little area in here called the crunkle, but I like to have the crunkle actually modeled into with the eye so that there isn't any kind of weirdness in moving the crunkle geo separate from the eyelids when in animation. So if they're all part of the same mesh, there's less chance of them kind of like floating in different areas from rigging. So if I need a little bit more, I'll just come in and let's turn off. I may just let's do two. I may just kind of punch this out just a little bit. So we look at the and then so something else I look at before we start really getting into the eyeball is this thickness on this side similar to this thickness on this side, and that is definitely a no. So I'm going to work on making sure that all of this thickness looks good, and we have a good consistent edge loop that's sitting on the actual eyeball. So the question is, do I want this edge loop? Again, this is just a base mesh I picked up from 3D Scan Store. I typically don't do my retopo for this level of scrutiny in ZBrush. I'll use either Maya or Modo or something to do the retopo. So I'll use like quad draw. Um, so if you want to just quickly talk about remeshing, my workflow, how I usually do it if I'm creating the base mesh from scratch, is I'll do the head sculpt first. So I'll come in here and just sculpt the head to where I want it. And then what I would do is I would go and just recreate the mesh on top of it with either quad draw or the retopology tools in Modo or well, quad draw is in Maya. So for me, I would do the retopo in one of the core programs. You could do it in here. It's a little bit kind of more Wild West style for my taste, but you could do it in here. There's some where you can do, you could select a particular area, hide everything else, so you select this. Oh, that's terrifying. Um, you select this area and then you ZRemesh this. The problem is then you don't really have a really, really good control over your topology. It's kind of up to the program to fix or to decide. Um, Again, like if you're going into high-res production for AAA video game, like this stuff will mostly get um, will be done in the beginning in pre-pro, not pre-pro, but in the very beginnings of production. Um, Typically, you'll have base meshes worked out in the beginning, and then you just kind of riff off those for different characters. A couple of other just quick shape things for the eyes, and again, this is all just typical, um, and it obviously varies from person to person in real life. But typically, if you're looking, let's talk about spacing, right? So if this size of your eye from your outer eyelid connection to your inner eyelid connection is typically the same distance from here to here than it is from here to the beginning of the other eye. So the from here to here is usually 3 eyes distance, right? So you have 1 eye distance in between here, typically. Um, and then a couple of other quick points that I always look at is the highest point on the upper lid and the lowest point on the lower lid typically are um, slanted. So the highest point on the upper eyelid is usually on the inside of the lowest point on the lowest eyelid, right? So like the highest point is right about here, and then the lowest point is right about here. Creatures is kind of no. This is just for human face. Yeah, this is I'm just talking about the human face for now. So that's another thing I look at really quickly is to make sure that I have this tilt to the highest point on the upper lid and the lowest point on the lower lid. It just gives a more natural feeling. Of course, there's always the outliers and weird things, but that's just typical. Okay, so that feels a little bit better. We have a little bit more thickness to this. And again, this is another reason I don't do this stuff until, or I don't do detailing until um, I have my base mesh worked out well, because it's really, really important to be able to quickly go down to this lowest subdivision level, and then you can go back up to your highest subdivisions, and it retains all of that information, right? So you can work independently within the same mesh. Dougie, what's up, buddy? Yes, the 3 eyes. Um, so typically, all right. So what I'll do is let's just do this. Let's draw. Okay, we're gonna go RGB. Let's turn that off real quick, and let's color sample that. Actually, let's fill this with that, and then we'll draw. Oh god, what did I do? There we go. I'm on standard RGB. Oh, it's not happy about something. Do I have layers? Is that why? Aha. layers don't really work well. Uh, if you have sculptural detail in layers and you try to paint something with poly paint, it usually doesn't mesh well. So that's why sometimes you get some of those issues. Anyways, I'll just do it with the move tool. Um, so what I was saying about the eyelids, so this right here, so if you look at this curve, right about here, if you look at this straight on, right about here is the highest point on this upper curve. Now you want to look at the lowest point on the lowest curve on the bottom curve as well. That's about here, right? So you want the highest point on the inside of the lowest point on this one. Just so there's this angle for the highest point versus the lowest point. So it's typically more on the inside for the upper eyelid and outside for the lower eyelid. Does that make sense? And that's this all this stuff is very typical. So like sometimes I'll just push this a little bit further to get a little more dynamicness out of how the eye is sitting in the eyeball. All right, so this one's actually is okay. So now what I want to do is, now that I've controlled this thickness here, I just want to make sure, right, so this is still a little bit more thick than this one. So let's go back down to the lowest subdiv. Let's use my, and again, I'm just using the Alt with the move. And what that does is no matter what angle my camera is, it'll always um, pull on the average normal based on where my brush size. So if I hold down Alt and I click and drag to the left, it'll push in on the average normals, and if I pull to the right, it will pull from those average normals. So it's a really quick and easy way to, instead of coming in here and trying to like just pull it by hand, this way, it's much easier to just use the Alt and just pull to the right. Then maybe this can go in just a touch. The eyelids usually, for me, are usually a lot thicker than what I think they are. Especially the lower eyelid. There's so many times when I look at people's digital work that, and even my own early work, the lower eyelid is usually really thin on people's work. It's really tough to actually get it to feel correctly, because it's actually a lot thicker than you think. Because typically you'll see a good ledge on that to pick up highlights. Yes, just the highest and lowest points. Yep. And you can always, at that point, just go look at some reference with that exact idea in mind, and then just look at what the reference says. That thickness feels a little bit better now. It's a little bit more consistent with this one. And then let's move on to the actual eyeball. And there's 1,000 different ways to do it. Well, it's probably not 1,000, but there's a lot of different ways. Typically, what I do is I actually, when I'm starting a character, and again, when I'm starting a base mesh, what I'll do is I'll start with the size of the eyeball, and I will create the eyeball at the human scale, which is, I think, between 23 and 24 and a half millimeters. Um, Again, we can just look that up real quick. What was that? Yes. Typically 21 to 27 millimeters. 21 to 27. So I usually like, 24. So what I'll do is I'll go into a program like Modo or Maya or something, and then I'll just create an eyeball at that size, right? So 2.4 centimeters is the same as 24 millimeters. So I would actually create the eyeball first at the exact size, and then I would scale my head to fit the eyeball, and then dupe the eye off to the other side, so that I know it's more real world scale for the eyeball. Right. So, the other thing with how the eyeballs actually sit in the eye sockets, they're not exactly parallel like this. They're actually, I think they're tilted outward just a touch, like by like a few degrees. If you have them sitting straight on, they'll tend to look a little more cross-eyed. Now, physiologically, I don't know if that actually is true in the human eye, like in an actual person. But then you start getting into mathematical stuff where what's the angle of your camera? Too much for me. So I tend to just tilt out um, the axis a touch. Let's go here. There we go. So you see how they're tilted outward just a touch. It helps just with not making them cross-eyed looking. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, so let's talk about how do I actually create an eyeball. So I am going to let's set these in the actual eyelid better first. So I will use the topology here and pretend that I can see the actual iris, right? So like if the iris was this edge loop here, um, then I can kind of place that in, right, and get the approximate size of the iris in there. It's okay. So then how does, how does the iris sit within the eyelid um, silhouette, I guess you could say? How does it sit in there? So let's look up real quick. Let's do female eyes. Let's look at reference. Yay, reference. So what I'm looking at is how much does the upper eyelid and the lower eyelid cut off the silhouette of the iris, right? So here you can see it cuts off more of the top of this circle than it does the bottom, but it definitely cuts off both sides. Now this one you can tell um, they're looking up because you typically don't see the bottom of the iris. Again here, a little bit more cut off here than here. Yeah, I'll show you the whole sculpt in just a second. Again, so typically, right? So you've got the highest point of the eye here, lowest point of highest point of the eyelid on the inside, lowest point of the eyelid on the outside. And then you typically have more of the iris cut off on the top, and then just a little clipped off on the bottom. Same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing. Right? We get the idea. So when we start getting into something like this, that's when, like when you can see almost the whole iris, that's when it looks surprised. Or you're looking up. Right? Got it? Cool. So I may actually want to bring the upper eyelid down a little. We'll see. So here's somebody's asking to see the whole sculpt. Let's turn the texture map back on for you. So this is what I've got so far. Yeah, it's fun. The clothes I did, just a super quick. You can actually see them here. I just did a super quick Marvelous Designer and threw those on there and exported them. So that's what I did there, and then just sculpted on top of them. For the gloves, just extracted and did a little bit of sculpting on top of them. Pretty much the same thing with the leg stuff. Just a quick block out. Thanks, guys. Okay, so let's do the eyeball. I'm just gonna do it quick and dirty. I'm not gonna do it to the final. I'll just show you kind of what I do. Take a drink of water. Hold on. Okie dokie. So yeah, think about how your shaders are going to be set up in Engine, right? So typically you're going to want to have some kind of glass shader. All right, let's just do one eyeball for now. So let's I'll get back to the shader stuff in a second. Hold on. So let's duplicate that. Let's turn these guys off. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete that guy. Let's do delete hidden. Y. Oh, okay, turn this way. So let's bake all, delete hidden. Okay. So as for the shader, typically you would want to have a combination of texture and glass, right? So in the glass shader, um, doesn't render the same when you have a texture on it as if you have a regular shader with texture on it, right? So you kind of want the best of both worlds, right? You want to have some kind of glass shader so that there's refraction from the eye lens that sits a little bit like this to the inside of the textured portion. So from here, what I would do is select the area that I want the iris to be in. All right, so then we can just say I want it to be not there, right? We need actually a little bit bigger because it's got a clip here and it's got a clip here. So we'll take it out maybe to this one. Let's see what that feels like. That feels a little better, right? And then this way you can test too. Whoa, it's pointed out quite a bit. I'll have to rotate that back in a little. It's like she's like, yeah, Z Studio. Let me cover how I get through the eye real quick, and then remind me after I finish the eye, and I'll tell you. What's up, bro? How you doing, man? Okay, so now that we have the eye correctly sized, right? We initially did that with our base setup. Um, it's sized. It's in the eye socket now, and the eyelid is correct, or at least feels okay for the shape of the upper eyelid, the shape of the bottom eyelid. So then, now that I have those things, you know what we should do is we should just rotate this into place first. Right, so now we got. And the nice thing about this asymmetry is that typically your eyes don't sit exactly the same on both sides, which is totally fine. So again, I don't mind doing this asymmetrically. So then one of the things you could also do is, so now we've got an equal clip on this side versus this side, which isn't really what I like. I like having more on the top. So another thing you could do is, let's just get this kind of even all the way around here. You could try doing group masked, and then just create a polygroup like that. That way you don't have to, you can still move him or move it around, and the polygroup now is showing you what the iris is doing. Let's say it's something like that. I'm okay with that. Okay, so it's sitting in there quite okay. I like this thickness is okay. Whoa, this thickness is okay. It's clipping more of the top than it is the bottom. We don't have a big space there, and it's sitting okay in there. So then the position of this eye I feel is okay at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this because it's sitting correctly on the eyelid here. I feel it's okay at the moment, right? I want this to be my outer portion of the eye. So for the actual textured portion of the eye, I'm going to duplicate it and scale it in just a little bit so it's sitting on the inside, so I don't have to readjust the connection between this part of the eyeball and the eyelid. So what I'll do is let's duplicate this. And again, um, if you have base meshes already set up, if you have, pre-production is already done, typically all this stuff will already be worked out again. Okay, so let's duplicate this, and then we'll just, we'll scale it. Let me use my mouse here. We're going to make sure that it's in the center of unmasked. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm just going to scale it in just a touch. Okay, so now we have two different eyeballs, right? So we've got the one on the outside, which is this one, and then the one on the inside, which is this one, right? So if we turn on ghosting, you can see the one on the inside. So now the reason why we do that is because the one on the inside will actually hold the texture and a different shader than the outside will. So the outside one will be the glass shader, and then the inside one will be a typical shader with a very low roughness map, a normal map, and that's where all the details of your actual eyeball will be. So what I do from here is I'll check the outer eyelid, right? So this is what the outer eyelid is, right? So let's rename this outer eyeball, and then let's grab this one and we'll say inner eyeball. So the outer eyeball, I'm going to select this guy, and then we'll just mask it and move it just a touch, and then I'll go to center of masked area, right? Get that about in the right direction, and then we'll just go let's turn on the body. Okay, and then maybe what we'll do is we'll shrink the mask. Oops. Let's invert, shrink, shrink, we'll just get, oops, and then we'll invert again. So we've got this little conical shape sitting on the outside, like this. And maybe, I may want to work on that shape a little bit more. All right, now for the inside, I'll take this and then I'll just flatten this. Okay. All right, so now that I have the outer and the inner sitting together, I usually will just turn off the outer, and that one will get the glass shader. Okay. Clear that. And then we can go a little bit further into creating the actual eye, the inside of it. So how big do I want? Maybe this big. Let's do group masked. Sure, let's do that. Maybe just pull that guy in. And again, if it doesn't feel right, just do it again. Now that you know how to do it, you can do it as many times as you would like to. It's great. Or you can just get somebody's Gumroad and their eyeballs, so you don't have to construct them yourself. Up to you. So let's clear that. Um, so one of the bigger problems with ZBrush is that it doesn't really have a good transparency shader in the viewport. So when I get to this point, I just kind of have to. I typically will be sending things over to Marmoset to see if they're looking correct. Um, but from here, I typically will just use the outer eye and turn this back to the general color that I want. Let's clear that. There we go. And then I'll just continue working from here. So once I have that, then maybe what I'll do is I will mirror and weld. And again, now you can see how asymmetrical the face is. Right, get the idea. So that's how I usually construct the eyes. We'll just leave these guys on for now. There we go. Good for now. Okay. Some of the other things. Oh yeah. So let's talk about the eye shine real quick. So typically you'll have um, some kind of wetness down here. So the way that I do the wetness shader or the wetness line is to just create a piece of geo that mimics this angle right there and literally put it clipping into the eyeball and into here. So let's do that real quick. So what are the easiest ways? Let's see. Actually, let's go to questions real quick. Do you have folders with character parts to use rather than taking time to rebuild those things from scratch? Yeah, typically. So, um, in a professional setting, uh, we have shared assets for eyeballs and base heads. So typically, you would just grab all of your base stuff and put them into this to one scene, and it would source, you know, all the same shaders and all the same textures and stuff. And then if you need to make color diffs, then you just diff off whatever you need. Yep. Yeah, no problem, man. No problem. Okay, so let's make this this eye shine, right? So big question is how do you make the eyeball look like it's sitting in there correctly with the wetness? One of the ways that we fake that is to just put a small strip of geo along this border of the eyeball and the bottom eyelid, and then we put a you can put a texture on it. You can put you could use it as a glass shader, but either way, you need to have some kind of geo there. So usually what I would do is let's take the whole base mesh. I'll use the bottom eyelid. So let's duplicate that. Okay, let's turn off the original. Let's go ahead and bake all my layers. I guess I don't think I need to go all the way up to bake all the layers. Let's just do it anyways. And then I need a good amount of geo. Let's turn off my texture map. Yeah, I think that's okay. So let's hide everything else. Right, first off, let's hide everything else. We don't need all that. So um, let's delete higher. Let's delete lower. We can hide everything else and delete hidden. Right now I just have this set, and then let's okay, gonna delete all that. I'm just gonna do one side here for now, and then I'll do the other side because it's asymmetrical. Okay, so let's do that. Let's delete hidden. I'm just gonna get a big chunk of this off here, just to start whittling down. Okay, let's delete hidden. Alright, then now what I'll do is I'm just going to grab probably 2 loops. And again, I'll be able to move this around. The main thing is that I'm catching the curvature of this eye uh, within within the intersections. That's the biggest. Whoa, where did you go? Uh-oh. Oh, Jesus. Where did we go? There we go. Looks like I have the rest of the body in there. Why do I have the rest of the body in there? Let's do this. Okay, everything else is gone. Now I delete hidden. Okay, the rest of the body's gone now. Alright, we'll just do that again. So I'm going to grab just two spans. And you can already see things are twisted a little bit in here, which is fine. We'll just... Yeah, the other thing you could do too is just grab, even if it's not the same loop, we can zero mesh it and clean it up. That's maybe what I do as well. So even though it's still a little bit like kind of gross looking, I can easily just kind of move things around a little bit, and then we do polish by groups. And then we do zero mesher. I don't know why, but 20 by 20 is always really good for me. So I'll just do same. Before I do that, let's delete hidden. There we go. All right. So that typically will clean it up quite a bit, which is that's fine. And then you just may need to go in and manipulate a little bit of it. Okay, so now let's see how that's sitting with the rest of the body. And you may have to do this a couple of times. That's normal. Right, you may not have the right rotation in here. May need to be that so I really want the curve to go this way, right? So I want it to be like this, not flat like this. So this one actually may not work. So maybe we'll just do that again real quick. Let's go back. Going back. So instead, maybe I want to grab something out here. So let's turn that one off. And then I can move it up there, right? So because I want this curvature here, not this flatness. So let's grab welcome to character art in production. It's long. It's tedious. It's not all glitz and glam, man. It's actually a very highly technical skill and job, especially in realistic in the realistic world. That's actually the whole point, the whole reason why I do these live sessions is to show people, yes, it's long, it's tedious in some spots. It's not all glitz and glam. When you're creating video game characters, you have to take into account all the different technical stuff. So let's delete hidden. Grab that. We'll delete hidden. Okay, cool. All right, so that's a little bit better of the curvature that I want. And now I can take where's my lasso? There we go. Grab this dude. And pull him up here. Right, so that's more of the actual right, because I want this roundness for that particular piece of geo, because I want the light to be able to hit it in certain rotations, right? So now that I have this that curvature a little bit better, now I can just kind of get this into place. So the other important thing is that it also shares similar topology to the rest of the eye, which means that the riggers will not hate you. Cool. So then you would UV that guy, and then you can do a couple things. You can just leave it um, as that piece, and it will only pick up highlights um, as with a glass shader wherever it's hitting, right? So if you've got this curvature on it, it should only pick up uh, the wet shade wherever the light is hitting it. All right, so there you go. This will give you an idea. Actually, you know what? I think we have glass in here. Oh, so let's look at chrome maybe. Chrome's a little bit weird. But this gives you an idea. Now, like, as you rotate around, you've got this little piece of geo that's picking up highlights that will fake that wetness feel, and it will sit your eyeball within your eye socket a little bit better, like that. So I would do that for both sides. The important though thing is to have some kind of roundness on it. Let's put this at 2. From Philippines. What's up, man? Okay. And then for the crunkle, I'd probably just hide this down underneath the geo. For the end of this, I just hide it underneath the geo. So for the crunkle, um, I want that to move with the eyelids. So typically, the reason why I like this guy, this base mesh, is because the crunkle is already built into the eyeball, which I like. Um, so when you're doing the maps for the head, right? So you have the texture map, you have the normal map, you have the roughness map. Typically, you don't have a metalness map for the head because nothing's metal there. Uh, what I would do is in the roughness map, I would go and just paint this area closer to black to so that it's less rough and more shiny, right? That way you can fake some of this shininess without having to create a different piece of geo to apply a different shader besides the skin shader that you're going to apply to everything else. So this area, we'll leave the geo in there in the eye, and then in the roughness map, I would just paint a darker value in here so that it will pick up some of the shine more than the outer skin. Cool? Cool. Call this eye wetness. Eye wet. And then you can play with the thickness, right? So maybe that's a little bit much, so we could just always just pull this, push it back in just a touch. If you want a little bit less, maybe you want a little bit more here. Mic's low. Am I just talking softly? Alright, so you can have it taper off on the inner and the outer, and then have it a little bit more down there. Right, so then what I would do is when you have your game mesh ready and you have all your textures and everything, you're doing the final touches, what I would do is I would just export this to Marmoset and just get it in the right position in the engine, or whatever engine that you're going to be using. Cool. Okay, good. So I think that's probably the most I got for the eyeball area. So I think we can. What I'd like to do probably for the rest of this session is let's. I'd like to try to get some of that cloth stuff in here actually. Nope, not that one. Eye wet. I'm just gonna hide this one for now. So I want to play around with some of the drapery in the back real quick, um, just for the fun of it. So I'm going to show you typically what I do when I'm incorporating anything from um, Marvelous Designer. So basically what I did was I just took a couple of pieces like this, attached them with the with this guy, the Attack on Avatar. Attack on Avatar. Attack. Yeah, I knew you were gonna mention the bacon, Dougie. Damn you. Um, so maybe a couple of different versions of this guy. So maybe what we'll do is let's let's make one more version of this one just to show you real quick. Ah, you guys have done Marvelous Designer before. I don't have to go through that. You get it. Actually, once this loads, then we'll export real quick. Yeah, the avatar's eating people. Okay, it's gonna take forever. Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's say I have these. Like, okay, yeah, let's get that over. Sure, we can start with that. Right, so I typically will just do export selected OBJ, and then we'll say um, cloth drape. Some of the texture, yeah, that's fine. And then we want single object is fine. I think I imported it feet, so I usually will leave this the same. Unwelded is fine, thin is fine, unified fine. Okay, that's fine. Let's just see. Let's see where that gets us. Okay. Quick note on importing OBJs is whatever you have selected, it will replace whatever you have selected. So typically what I'll do is I'll grab something. Let's just grab this. I'll duplicate it and then import. Importante. From Marvelous. No. Okay, there we go. Woot. Done. Alright, let's see what the geo looks like. It's all triangles, so you may want to quadrangulate. Um, and then go from there. Or you could just work with this. Alright, so now I have a couple of different versions. Let's do maybe auto groups. And let's turn off symmetry. Let's hide that. We'll split hidden. Right, so now we have two. Cool. So then maybe we'll grab this one and duplicate that one. And then see if we can get this guy rotated around here. So I may create like 2 or 3 versions and then just duplicate a couple. There's no reason to kind of create 50,000 different versions of them. I've been working on anatomy pretty much my whole career, and will continue to work on anatomy throughout the rest of my career. Um, Anatomy is something that it takes quite a bit of effort to get to a point where things look natural, and so just keep practicing. Keep practicing. Just keep practicing. Just keep practicing. But it definitely took quite a while to get to a point, and really it's about not necessarily the skill. It's really just developing your eye, right? So it's about knowing what looks correct from a artistic point of view and from a technical point of view. Who was I just? I was just watching somebody. Oh, the Kickstarter sculpting for what was it? I think I just deleted it. Shoot. Hold on. There was a Kickstarter not too long ago. Trash can. Um, it was really, really good anatomy. Obviously Scott Eaton is a really great ZBrush anatomy guy that I would check out. Uh, Really, really good. Let's duplicate this guy one more time. So again, this is just a quick way to play with some ideas. You know, obviously maybe this isn't the final, While practicing, would you keep tweaking and reworking one human face, or would you suggest working on a few different faces? I would do different faces. I would what I honestly what I would do is I would track. So I would do one head, and I would get it to a point where either I'm frustrated and I don't know what else to do, and move on to another one. Um, and then you just keep doing them, and as you go, you can actually track your progress. It's almost like taking photographs of yourself while you're working out, you know. So you can track your success, right? So you may not be anatomy for sculptors. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, music. You may not be able to see you the change in your perception of what looks correct or not, um, if you keep working on the same head. So what I would do is I would work on one head, get it to a point where either I'm so frustrated I can't go any further, or I'm happy with it for the time being. And then you start a new head, create a different head, work on that one, and then go from there. Maybe these are all rotated down. So this is a quick, cool way to that I use to just kind of block out some ideas. Again, I'm not looking for um, a final model. I'm just looking for some quick ideas. What does that silhouette do? How can I create these things, these elements to help bolster personality? Right? How does this explain her character? How do I make some really cool designs decisions? Would you go back to the one that frustrated you? No, I would not. I would keep moving forward. All right, so let's see. Maybe this. So I try to get a lot of depth whenever I'm doing something, right? So instead of just having uh, one line around here, go different depths and get like this really nice overlapping happening. So let's see. Let's grab let's grab a floor plane. Do I have one already? I think I have one. Yes, I do. Don't need that one. Let's delete that guy. Did you pose in ZBrush? Yes, I posed in ZBrush for this particular one. But I did it with base mesh. For me, it's easier to do in ZBrush. Mostly because I don't know any rigging. And when do you know when to switch from head to try another party? Let's say arm. Um, just whenever you get bored or whenever you get comfortable. What do you feel like doing? That's another thing too. There's not an exact roadmap to how do I become a ZBrush master or how to become an anatomy master. There's no roadmap. You just got to go with what makes you excited to do the work. You know. So what I'm thinking of is what kind of if we have a kind of a harsh upper angle light from this, right? So this type of thing, right? So I want everything to be pointing at this person, right? So as many elements as I can get that come in to say, this is important, even from a subtle. That's kind of cool. Like that. I'm so not good at environment stuff. I'm terrible at environment stuff. So, any of you guys want to create a cool throne for me? uh, I suck at environment stuff. But hey, at least I can admit it. Um, so for like the last part, let's work on getting a better arm guard for her. So I was playing around just with this idea, but again, it doesn't really it, it's a little bit weird. It doesn't quite fit into you know this, right? So the other thing too is I got to figure out what the design elements are for this character. Right now we got drapery, we have danglies, we've got kind of baroque. Is that the right word for that? And then these elements here, right? So those are really the only design elements that we have, and this is kind of all over the place. Doesn't really fit anything. So once you start designing stuff, you really have to kind of pick something and keep that kind of repeating. So kind of these shapes kind of conflict with this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start over on those guys. Do, 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 do. And I'll show you how I start armor. So if I'm in the start armor, I want it to match the curvature here. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of what I did for the eye wet. I'll just duplicate it. And I'll just do it real quick. How about that? Dupe, dupe. I'll dupe my base, and then maybe I'll just block out the base, right? So maybe what I want to do, maybe this element, right? So we've got kind of rounded square, rounded square, rounded square. Doesn't really fit. Maybe rounded square, rounded square. So maybe rounded square is the thing that the element that we keep consistent. So let's just try something simple to see if we can get the design element correct. All right, so now because this is a duplicated mesh, I can let's bake all, but gotta be at the highest subdiv. Highest subdiv, go. Why can't I bake all? What does it say? Partially hidden, that's right. So I hid the feet. There we go. Okay, cool. And then let's go down to say 3. Sure, I'm going to ZBrush it anyways. So I'll just delete all of that. I'm going to group masked, hide everything else, delete. So what that does is it gives me the exact curvature of the arm just with new geo. But it's all messed up. How do you fix that? Huh? How do you fix it, Brendon? How how do you fix it? Turn texture map off. It's easy. Pause for groups. What? But it's still messed up. Okay. We go in. Zero mesh. We'll go 20 by 20. And then we'll just mesh by halves. Oh! That's starting to look a little cool. And then maybe we'll polish by groups again. And we'll make maybe one more half. Oh, now I got a nice piece of geo with the exact same curvature of that. And I can start playing around with it. Okay, what shape should this be? Maybe we'll just do a simple square. Maybe we'll do like alright, if we're gonna do that design element, maybe what we'll do is we'll pull. I don't care about the geo at this point because I'm gonna zero mesh it again. Maybe it's got something like this. Oh, it's so gross. I can't even look at it. It's so gross. Oh, bleh, so gross. That's okay. We'll do same and then just zero mesh it. Oh, look! That's so cool. So rounded. Yeah. And then maybe what we can do is we'll just make this a little bit wider than the arm. Yes, anatomy for sculptors. That's a very, very, very good one. And then if we scale like this, it'll actually take that curvature and expand the curvature a little bit. Oh, oh, tricky, tricky. Right, so I feel like that design element fits better into what we already have. Yeah, maybe feathers. I only have feathers up here, so maybe what we could do is actually we can either incorporate feathers or dangly bits into it as somehow as well too. So let's get to shape first. I think that is more important at the moment. So let's bring this in. Let's just get this. Yeah, I was watching they just put out a video about the clavicle and the scapula that was really, really awesome. Okay, cool. So now we have this thing. There's a couple things you could do here to add thickness. Because right now, if you go down to display properties and turn off double, it's only a single plane. So I typically use the Z modeler brush and just Q mesh it because that way I can determine the thickness on the fly. Is what I like. Yeah. Okay. And then maybe oops. Maybe it's got a little border. Now from here you can go a couple of different ways. You can dynamesh it and start kind of hacking away at it, or you can continue just with the geo. Um, I typically like kind of hacking it from here. So maybe what we'll do is try dynamesh. Okay, that's too low. Let's try 512 dynamesh. Probably still a little bit. Let's go That's a little bit better. The nice thing is that it keeps your polygroups. So then I can say I want to mask this polygroup and then just riff on these guys. All right, so you could use backface mask, but one of the other things I want to incorporate real quick is Pro, Pro, Sculptris Pro. Sculptris Pro does not work with backface mask. So a quick way that I get around it is just masking the back. Like that. You can start playing around some design ideas here. So it's a quick way to just play around with some ideas. Let's clear the mask. Oops. Okay. Just give it a quick. There you go. And then maybe what we'll do is add one more element in here. Okay, and then let's get that into the same family as this. So we'll go gorilla, maha, gorilla. Okay. There we go. So now we can see what that looks like. Sure. So let's mirror and weld. See what that looks like on both sides. Okay. 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 Yo, what's up, Elite? How you doing, man? Okay, then let's dupe this. Let's turn on symmetry. And then let's see what that looks like when we maybe it comes this way a little bit and rotates down. How's that feeling? That feels a little bit better than the other one did. Right, so our arms are asymmetrical. Yeah, I'm thinking some kind of another skull element would be good too, or some of this stuff. So it gives us a palette to start repeating patterns, right? So let's go in here and then let's do just some quick. Let's do Sculptris Pro. What I want to do is I want to, again, come on now. mask that side. And then I can let's take it off MRGB. We'll put it on add. Cool. All right, so now I can start adding some of those same elements in here. Hello? Hey! What's up, fam? I'll leave you guys with this just for a second here. Where'd she go? Hey! Hey! Hi! You wanna come say hi? No, you don't. No, you don't want to say hi. It's okay. Hello? Hi! Come here! What is all of that? Is that the cool stuff? Look at that little belly. Goody, 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 little belly. What you got? You got a book? Is that Oscar? She loves Oscar right now. Absolutely loves him. This little guy right here, she won't let go of. Huh. You got your Oscar? Yeah? Did you have a good sleep? Say hi. 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 How's it going? Yeah? Is Dad working all the cool stuff? Dad, what's on your eyes? What is that? Can I have some? Yeah, Dad, I can't see your eyes through the glasses. All right, buddy. I'll be done soon, okay? I'll be done soon. All right. Got about another 20 minutes, and then I'll be done. Cool. No, don't press the power button on the computer. Thank you. Yeah, let's not press the power button. That'd be awesome. Or the reset button. See you guys. All right, let's turn that fan back on. All right, family time is over for the moment. Pulling out all the stops. Exactly. Pulling out all the stops. Yeah, let's grab this dude. You can see where I got him. This is directly from the Kinsing anatomy that comes with. Where is he? Brush. No, he's in tool. This dude. Just grabbed him from there. Easy peasy, man. Don't press the power button. Daddy would not be happy if you press the power button. I love you, but don't do it. All right. Let's see what that looks like. Oh yeah. Let me turn that down this way just a little bit. Right. So I am not a concept designer. So one of the things that I've been trying to work on personally is my design skills. So this is one of the practices um, in that. So I'm not one to teach about good concept design or character design. I'm much more of a character artist, which in the video game industry is much more of a technical thing. Right? Um, so I have known that I have my skill set isn't the highest in design. So that's what I've been trying to do lately is do more design stuff. Mirror weld. There we go. How's that feeling? I like that one of the things I really like is subtle details where like it's not in your face obvious details. It's kind of like, "Oh, that's a nice little like that's a nice little treat," you know? Or like you rotate around, you look at a different angle, and you're like, "Oh, wow, yeah, that's cool." There's like details everywhere, not just details presented in one particular um, angle. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think one of the things that I wanted to try was, maybe all this stuff can be a little bit more like, what if this acted like a crown? Oh my god, I'm just gonna turn the shell thing off. It's bugging me. Hey, there we go. What if this shape up here kind of acted more like a crown, right? And then this kind of came up this way. I found that when I'm trying to figure something out, I say "what if" a lot, and it really helps me. Like, oh, what if this thing like came out this way? Oh yeah, like when you were kids and you're like, let's pretend that uh my guy was the best guy and he totally owned the whole world and he was like the most heroic hero and then this guy was like, the worstest, like worstester, you know? Wouldn't that be awesome? So I found that actually helps me. I say, what if? What if this came down here like this, and then there's these kind of these crown elements that kind of came down here. Right, and then we can maybe use snake hook here. Aha! Then we had some kind of element here, some kind of element on here, and we can actually drape some chains there. Yeah. Sven, I didn't see. Yeah, you have been here for a little while. Your little name tag is blue against the blue background, so I didn't realize it was you, Sven. Sven! John von Svenny. How you doing, man? How's things, buddy? Svensky? Ah, no, man. You can't forget Svensky. You're like OG, dude. Not at all, man. Not at all. That's why I was like, oh shit, that's Sven. Yeah, man. It's a rough time, dude. It's it's a rough time. Yeah, Sven was from the old days. Olden days. Okay, let's mirror and weld because I forgot to put symmetry on. Yeah, that's looking cool. I like that. Me likes it. Mikey likes it. And then maybe what we'll do is let's do. Did I forget to turn it on? Nope, it's still on. Okay, let's do a little bit of definition here. Okay. So this will be the border. I'm thinking about material borders right now for value shifts. So what I would like to happen is that um, the outside here will be gold. Gold. Hold on one sec, guys. Okay. Okay. And so yeah, and then we can start playing around with shapes and stuff here. Yeah, that feels pretty cool. Maybe what we could do is we can pull this a little bit higher, kind of add a little bit more depth in here. Yeah. Again, I'm just trying to get a block out, a basic idea of the overall shape. Not a polished pass at the moment, so. Okay, so then we'd have maybe some kind of element here. Ooh, I don't know why that happened. That's a little bit weird. Let's see if I can move this guy. Okay. See if I can just... Uh-oh. I'm gonna crash. No! Cross your fingers for me, guys. Oh, yeah! Oh, that's good. Crash on. Save on. Save on crash. Save on crash. Save on crash. Cross your fingers. Come on, baby. Man, that's loud. Recover. 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 Recover, says me. Come on. Well, I think we'll be okay. This is the one we were working on. 30 seconds before autosave turned on. Oh. Yeah, the sound is a little loud. Sorry about that. We good. Let's save. Let's save. We get the whole their idea of saving on crash is has been a lifesaver for me more times than I could count. Why is that so loud? Sorry. You should have pushed the reset button earlier. Yeah, right. Okay. So now let's try this. It's usually on move when I move to something like a subtool that I haven't touched in a little while. Typically I will get those like here. I think I just got another crash. Oh, bejesus. It doesn't like moving that thing at all. Let's turn that down a little bit. Yeah, hey, there we go. Sorry about that. Try it again. It's a good thing I saved it. Let's instead load the tool. I think my PC wants a break. Could be. Better be safe than sorry. I see what you did there, Sven. All right, we got about 8 or 10 minutes left, so happy to. You guys have more questions or how I did something? Happy to chat or answer any questions that you may have at this point. Um, because I'm going to be wrapping soon. Soon, soon. How did I do the throne? Yeah, what throne? How are you do it? How are you doing the things? Show me the things of doings. Show me how do use. How do use? Maybe what we can do is let's try repeating elements again. So let's grab this one, let's duplicate it, and then maybe this one would be cool to put on the forearm. Is it polypaint? No, this is the texture that came along with the body mesh, with the base body. Oh my god, stop it. And then what I did is I just imported it as a texture. So for the base body, if I'm here, it's the texture map that came along with it that I just brought in. So you can come in here and you can do import. Because the UVs are already set up and everything. So what I did for the black paint is I exported the base mesh um, and the texture into Painter, and then just created a new layer in Painter and painted some diffuse, and then just re-exported it. Oh, God bless the mute button. Woo! It's not the vid, don't worry. Um, and then what I did from Painter, after I painted all that stuff, I just re-exported a new albedo map and then imported it in here again, right? So it's just a temporary um, texture for the moment. Because what I'm going to do uh, for the final head is I would separate the body from the head somewhere around here, and then I would take and remap with X normal the head texture from this and remap it to new UVs. But that's later on down the road. On down the road, and much later on down the road. The chains are actually sourced as well. Uh, but you can use any kind of um, curvature brush, really. Let's mirror and weld that guy real quick, and then we'll just take, and then just, oh, not that one. All right, so if we have similar patterns, um, right, repeating design elements between these different pieces, it becomes more cohesive, right? I was saying something else before I did that. Oh yeah, the chains. So some of the work that I did on the chains that you can find in the previous uh, streams that I did. So if you want to go back and see any of the previous stuff, um, all my previous streams on this and previous projects are on ZBrushLive.com, and then you can just find my artist page there, and it has all of my previous streams on there. You can also go to the Pixelogic um, YouTube page and sift through there. There's a lot of other great artists on there too. So if you get a chance, I'd suggest doing that anyways. But what I did for the chains is really you can use any um, curvature brush, but I just went and I found something in brushes. I'm not sure. I said this on my last couple of ones too, but I'm not sure if this is a folder that I had because I was part of the beta testers at this particular time, or if in 2020 release they just included it in uh, the base package. I'm not sure, but you can grab pretty much anything, any curve brush. And in this particular instance, I'm using this insert omni chain. You can use rope, you can use whatever. You can use barbed wire if you want. That'd be cool. Um, but I used this one, and then I think I used at 5. Uh, so I'll show you. Actually, I'll end with this. I'll show you really quickly how I got these chains um, in the area. They're basically just flat planes, just rotated. So typically what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll create a temporary work plane. Is it this one? I think I deleted it. Either way, we'll just do it from the beginning. So I'll just grab a plane, grab this dude, and I'll just move this to where the actual position that I want it in. So in this particular case, let's just rotate this, somewhere here. Actually, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it on this guy over here. So I want to rotate it from so I want it to come from one of these points, and right now I'm just going to hit some random point over here. Right, so I put it about in that area there, and then let's go back to that brush. Okay, cool. The key here is to use transparency, because whatever you have selected, it will only snap to that particular subtool if you have transparency on. If you have transparency off, it'll try to snap to anything that's visible. So let's say if I want to do this, it's going to go onto the arm. I don't want that, right? What I want to do is, I think maybe this was at 10. What I want to do is I want it to just adhere to the plane. So now if I do it, it'll actually go underneath and just snap to the plane. So that's if you have something that's kind of in the way. In this particular case, I want it to be above the skin anyways. So I can just do something like that. Maybe I can... and then this depth placement, this is in button path is brush depth brush. Or brush depth brush, right? So you're in brush, you go to depth, it's right here. So this one, I want to be right on the curve. There we go. Cool. So now the cool thing is, right, so I can just alt-click off to finish the curve. Now, right, you've got one polygroup, right? You just do that, and then we just do split hidden. Let's turn that visibility off. And then let's just go down to there, turn off that, turn off polyframe, and then now you've got your orientated one, right? So then all you have to do is do that same thing. You can rotate yo, Chris, what's up, man? How you doing, Soul? You can rotate the plane and do it differently. Or what you could do is you could just say, let's duplicate this guy. Oh god, we're gonna crash again. It does not like moving those. I don't know why. It just does not like moving them. At all. There was an offset option next to the depth option, but depth is offset though. It takes a lot of time to sculpt the ornaments and details of a crown in ZBrush. Yes, it does. Yes. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Things could be a lot worse. Um, just surviving, you know? Just surviving. Let's see. Nice and gentle. Okay. Yes, this is very true, Dougie. This is very true. Let's put this one over here, and then maybe we'll just rotate it over like that. All right, so you could just create one and then keep rotating it. Um, so it depends on what this piece is here. You know, okay, maybe what we'll do is let's throw gold on that gold. It's gold. Oh, not that one. Not that one. Yep. Fill object. Alright, so now we have like this kind of connecting element. Whoa, 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 whoa. Easy there, buddy. Easy there. There we go. Alright, so we have this kind of connecting element between those. That's kind of cool. I like this design. I think I'm going to stick with this. And then I think the design element that we're going to stick with is the straight sides, rounded corners idea. Okay, so this one is not symmetrical or symmetra. I'm going to build this. I want this to sit a little bit more on top. Say maybe like that. So then we'll do mirror and weld, but we'll break symmetry. Let's just grab that one. Hey, break symmetry, I said. There we go. Go to center. There we go. Oh, now I can just move this one around. Okay. Going to wrap up. You guys don't have any other questions. I think we will call it now. So as a recap, if you guys want to go back and watch this episode again, we did how I create the eyeballs, some pointers on the eyelids, how I approach the crunkles, and the eye wetness geo. So if you'd like to go back and see that, I believe that this stream will be reposted relatively soon. Either on, it'll be on ZBrushLive.com under my artist page, but it will also be on the Pixelogic YouTube page at some point. Probably early next week. Emma, what's up? Thank you. I'm working on my design skills. It's coming. It's coming. There's a little bit more of... Yeah, I think she's got potential. She's got a ways to go, but she's got potential. Potential. I'm excited about this idea and nailing down a design sense. So once you do that, then you can just start repeating it all over the place, which is good. Except this doesn't really follow it, but whatever. Whatever, man. Everything doesn't have to be that way. Thanks, man. That means a lot. I know that I am not the best concept designer, so especially for characters. So I've been trying to. I know that that's one of my weak spots is the actual design. So I've been making a very big point in my own work to try to supplement that. So it means a lot that something's turning out good and somebody else is like, hey, that's actually pretty cool. Thanks, man. Thanks. This is the concept design. This is it. I'm doing the concept right now. Right. Meow. All right. That's it for today. Hope you guys had fun. I hope you guys learned a couple things. But most of all, I hope you were inspired to go make your own cool stuff. So do it. You get out there and you just go create stuff. Especially right now. We gotta let loose some of our inner frustrations. So, create the stuffs. Cameron, what's up, dude? Yeah, man, we're done. We've been here for a couple hours. Um, so again, lots of great artists coming up on the Pixelogic channel here on Twitch. So be sure to, um, well, you can sub if you want to, but at least follow the channel. You can also find my channel, which every once in a great while I'm on, which is twitch.tv Brendon Isaiah Bengtson. Copy and paste is your friend. And stay tuned for more amazing artists. And we will see you next time. Thank you all to all my buddies who dropped by. Missed you guys. Missed all you guys. I need to stream more. I need to stream more. I miss it. Anyways, have a good one, guys. Later.